Alright guys, I haven't done one of these in a while, but we're going to go ahead and do a topic video. Now, I like to do these every once in a while when there's something, newsworthy that I want to talk about. I wanted to hold off on making a video about this because I wasn't really too excited about the images that were released a couple of weeks back of the Mattel line that was aimed more for kids. Didn't know the full story behind it, so I wanted to wait until after the New York Toy Fair 2026, and also to see if anything else came out, more information or anything like that from the Toy Fair. Now, we do got to give a shout out to Rob D Toys because he's basically the one I was following on Instagram, showing everything that he was seeing out there in New York. So shout outs to him. Thanks for keeping us informed. But there's a couple of things that came out I do want to talk about and touch on. Some stuff I will not even mention because they don't pertain to me. I don't collect a lot of other lines, so I'm not too invested in other stuff, but I will talk about the things that pertain to, of course, McFarlane's DC Multiverse and Mattel, what they look like they're going to be putting out here then in the next year after the McFarlane license ends. And also, I did come across an interview with McFarlane where he did touch on what's going on with DC Multiverse and how his plans for after the official license ends, which will be at the end of the year. So pretty cool. Now to start off, I got kind of disheartened a little bit because the main thing I wanted to see was if there was any new reveals from McFarlane for the 7-inch DC Multiverse line. And the first thing I did notice was the page puncher setup. And that was more, they were showing off the Ninja Turtle stuff, which of course I don't collect Ninja Turtles, so, wasn't nothing to me. And as far as new releases or anything like that, it was basically everything that we know that we've gotten from Page Puncher. So I'm pretty sure there's other things that are going to be released that we didn't know of in the upcoming months, but they just didn't have anything at the show, which, it's not really a reveal show like the way Comic-Con is. But it was disheartening not to see anything new from Page Punchers that we haven't seen yet. So take it for what it is. The next thing I did see was there are some releases that we didn't know about, besides the Bane from the Dark Knight trilogy, the deluxe, I think they're called the theatrical editions or something like that. We did see a Bane that will be coming out. Hopefully he has all the accessories that should have come with a Bane release. And alongside that, we did see that they will be releasing a deluxe theatrical edition of Joker from The Dark Knight. Now, this one we can see what these releases will look like. He had all of his armory, all of his weapons, lots of fun accessories. So this is what we're looking at from the deluxe theatrical lines, if we see any more. Now, I'm pretty happy about the Bane. This Joker I do want to pick up just because he has all of the weapons that we've needed, all of the guns. But besides that, that was it. The other live action thing that we did see was the Brandon Roth Superman from Superman Returns. Now, I'm not too excited about this, but I could add it to the collection. Not a big deal. I always noticed that the boots and the belt from the original Page Puncher Superman, also used on the classic blue Superman, they were more like a Brandon Roth suit. So I don't know if these are the exact boots and the exact trunks, but people have noticed that some of the things are different, like the neckline and the size of the chest symbol of the shield. I think they look better, even though they're not accurate to how the costume was in the movie. I think they are really a plus, even though they are changed, because the shield on the movie always looked really small, as well as he does come with a cloth wired cape. So, I mean, that's cool for anybody that was on their wish list, but not something I'm, super excited about, but I'm glad to see it. I mean, but that's basically it from the 7 inch line. I mean, there's a couple of things that could have got past me that I didn't mention, but more than likely, they're things that we've already seen before. So we do have to move on to things like there was more Super Friends that are going to be released, like an Aquaman with an eye patch and a pretty cool looking Lex Luthor. Once again, I don't collect that, you know, subline from McFarlane, so it's not nothing that pertains to me. But I thought it was cool that they're continuing with that, as well as I think I heard McFarlane's doing a deal with like Entertainment Earth or something like that to keep doing Super Super Friends figures, and that does pertain kind of to what I'll be talking about at the end of the video, is what McFarlane said in that little interview. Now, another thing we did see from McFarlane, which isn't necessarily a DC multiverse, but is something at least that we know McFarlane is still in it. He's still going to be trying to produce figures, and that was the Image figures. I think the first one was the Spawn that people are going crazy over right now. Haven't picked it up, haven't seen it in the wild, but the next ones are going to be Savage Dragon, of course, an Eric Larson creation, and Shadowhawk, which looks pretty nice. Now, these are ones that I'm probably going to pick up just to add them to the, figure collection. Hopefully they do more like that. Blood Claw or whatever his name is. I always thought that was a cool looking character. But it's fun to see McFarlane at least putting effort into newer figures. Now, as well as we did see the Hellboy that will be being released, which looks pretty cool. You have two different versions, one with a jacket and one without, one with horns and one without. So he does have his signature weapons and all that, so that is pretty cool. And once again, just something cool to be seen from McFarlane that he's still, pumping out figures. Another thing we did see that I do collect this line, and that is the Spawn line. And although I don't collect it as furiously as I collect, DC figures, I was collecting it on the side as I went, looking for deals and getting figures when they were on sale. But we do have a pretty nice collection of, modern era Spawn figures from McFarlane. What I did see that I liked was, I think, a Redeemer, which is a figure that I always liked in the old McFarlane releases, but I know it's basically a statue, so I was never really, too into getting it. Well, we are finally going to get a fully articulated Redeemer figure, which is awesome, as well as some other figures like an alternate version of Nightmare Spawn, more accurate to the comics, as well as I think it's a Curse of Spawn or something like that. But all really nice to be getting new figures from McFarlane for his Spawn line. So looking forward to those. Now we will have to move on to things that I'm not too interested in, but I still saw McFarlane putting out there, and that was the replica cowls, which more like helmets, because there was a lot of what was it, like Nightfall Batman, Batman Beyond, Red Hood, One Damaged, which looked pretty cool. But I'm not a big fan of those, so I mean I don't collect those. But I mean, for people who do, that is cool. And that's pretty much it for McFarlane. But it kind of does tie us into what Mattel is doing now. Mattel came back with their own, replica cowls, but these are more of like the movie cowls of Batman, like Batman Returns, I think, and like Batman Forever. I'm not sure, but I did see some cowls pass by there, as well as a lot of the weapons and gadgets, the batarangs from Batman were on display from Mattel. So that really took me into what Mattel is doing, and there was a lot of like unclear things, because I did see like some WWE stuff where they said they were 6 inch, which is weird because we do know that a lot of the Mattel wrestling figures are more closer to 7 inch. They're really huge compared to your standard like Marvel Legends, which are supposedly supposed to be 6 inch, as well as He-Man. The He-Man Masterverse, they were 7 inch scale, and they were talking about the new movie He-Man figures. Looked pretty good. Didn't get a lot of art, like to see the articulation, especially at the waist, because That's one thing I do fear about Mattel, and that is that they like to use that old waistcut articulation, and I'm just not a big fan of that. Although they have adapted the like torso ball joint that they use, that McFarlane uses, they still kind of use that waistcut. So I just really need to see the full articulation before I could give, a real opinion. But when they were talking, they did say that the He-Man figures, the movie ones, were in 6-inch scale. So that's kind of interesting, like I said, because for the most part, we think that their WWE figures and their Masterverse figures were all in a larger scale than 6-inch. But I mean, we can't compare really. So we'll have to wait until we get official releases there so we could compare the figures next to each other and see how they really scale against each other. And then we get into the new DC releases. Now, this is the images that we have released, that like Legends Rise poster that we saw, which I didn't want to comment on, even though I knew it was a kid's line, so I wasn't too interested in it. And funny thing is that they say that that line is a 6.5-inch line. So I don't know if that's supposed to be bigger than 6-inch and just a little bit smaller than 7-inch. You do see that the articulation is, not all there. Although the designs look clean, I really like the pinless technology. Not a big fan of the thigh cuts. They still look hideous no matter what characters are on. They just stick out to me really bad. They do sport supposedly 22 points of articulation, so that's basically what McFarlane is giving us. So it's interesting to note that, because that'll be up against whatever it is for the adult collector line, which should be more like 30 points of articulation. So that'll be interesting to compare. Now, they did have a bunch of different, kid stuff, like a weird looking Batmobile. People already, starting with their moronic take, saying that all of these look better than McFarlane, or the head sculpts are way better than McFarlane. I mean, come on. I mean, we got to call it for what it is. These are really soft sculpts. And although they may, in some ways look better, their articulation is never going to be the same, or the articulation is never, especially at the waist, the articulation is never going to be what McFarlane gave us. And for a real comparison, we will have to wait for the collector's line that Mattel's going to, definitely put out. I did notice, like I said, no females. I saw Flash, Green Lantern, Batman, Robin, a bunch of Batman, actually. So if you think that Mattel is not going to pump out a lot of Batman, then you're sadly mistaken. They know how the line has to keep running, which is you have to keep pumping out those Batman figures, those Batman family figures, Superman, Wonder Woman, all those mainstays have to be released for the line to keep going. So it's going to be really interesting to see the way they release their figures, and I'm going to be there commenting the whole time of what they're releasing. But yeah, I guess Mattel hates women just like McFarlane does, because they did not have not even Wonder Woman. Even a Harley Quinn would have been really just something to show that they're not going to shy away from the female characters. But yeah, it is a business, and they have to put out definitely what sells. Something that a lot of people will be happy to see, and that is that they're going right away into the Jokerized version. So the legacy of the Jokerized version will continue even with Mattel. They had some Batman figure that was Jokerized, and then they had some other heads of Jokerized characters like Robin. So yeah, we're not going to get away from the Jokerized version. I always told everybody, if you don't like that, just don't collect it, don't look at it, don't think about it, because McFarlane's going to put out what he wants, and he's not really going to care, in the end, what we say. That's just an easy way for him to, make up money. And Mattel is going to be no different. They are definitely going to dip into our pockets and get a lot of reuse, repaints, and things that make a line continue to sell. The cheapest way they could do it while still keeping their profit line high, and trying to please all the crazy collectors that they try to. But if there's one thing we've learned, and that is that fanboys and nerds and uh, diehard collectors will never be satisfied.
Because you freaking fricks just can't ever be quenched. Your fantasies can't ever be quenched, can they? You freaking fricks! When will you learn? When will you learn that your actions have consequences?
But yeah, I definitely think it's going to be very interesting to match up what Mattel does to what McFarlane did. And it's going to be, once again, a golden time for, content creators and making videos and hunting the figures down and stuff like that. I'm going to continue to collect DC figures. I did say this before, and that is, it does not matter who has the DC license. I have always been a retail DC figure collector, and I will continue to do that, as long as I can. So now our final topic is going to be the interview that I did pass when I saw they were interviewing McFarlane. I think it was on a reel though, so I'm not sure who did it. But they asked McFarlane what's going on with the multiverse line, that they didn't see a lot of new releases. And he basically said that, yeah, there's not going to be much more. They only have until the end of the year, but they're keeping some things under wrap until they release them. But what McFarlane did say was that he is waiting for the end of the line so that he could kind of pull back and let Mattel start, releasing what they're releasing, what scale, what corners of the DC product they're going to be trying to fulfill. And that's when McFarlane will begin to, inquire and ask if there's any way where he could squeeze in there, and if there's something that he's more familiar with that maybe Warner Brothers would like him to do and things like that, that's when he'll start asking, and where he can fit in to releases from DC, because he will maintain a relationship, a communication with DC and Warner Brothers, as well as the one that he has with Marvel. So anyways, guys, that's my take. I mean, it wasn't like, all negative. Wasn't the best that I seen, but there's a little, glimmer of hope in the skyline. And people always say, "Oh, you love McFarlane. You're sad that McFarlane's losing the line," and that could be further from the truth. McFarlane had a good run. I enjoyed the line. I'm still going to be buying figures even after the line ends, so I could fill out my, DC Multiverse McFarlane collection. But I am very open to what Mattel's going to do, and interested to see how the figures are, what scale, the articulation, the character selection. And I'll just continue collecting, hunting, customizing, and trying to pump out content for you guys. So stay safe out there. We'll see you on the next one.